Okay, section 1.8, part 2 video. I had given you your formulas last time, and I had talked to you about how to identify A and B. So we're ready now to just wade off in the problem. So I just wrote the formulas up here again for us so we could look at it. So if you want to copy this, pause the video now and copy it. Okay, so we're going to solve the equations. Now, I'm going to do some of all of these formulas, but I'm probably going to do them one at a time. But on tests, they may be mixed up, but I'll show you how to identify which formula and how to use it. Okay, look back at the 4 steps that I gave you last time on solving absolute value equations and inequalities. Step 1. Step 1 says, isolate the absolute value term on a side by itself. So step 1 is done. Step 2, identify A and B. Remember I told you that A is what is inside the absolute values. So right here, A is x minus 3. B is the number that's over on the other side. So A is x minus 3, and B is 7. Step 3, solve the problem by using the appropriate formula. Okay, I have 3 formulas here. How do I decide which one of these 3 to use? Absolute value equal. This is the only one with an equal. So, this is how you decide which formula to use. Now, this is the actual formula. So I'm going to write this right here down next. So write that right there down next. So it would be A equal negative B, or A equal positive B. Now, what are we going to do? Replace A with x minus 3. Replace A with x minus 3. Now, replace B with 7, and replace this B with 7. But this B has a negative in front of it. Yes, you have to put it back. So just memorize the formula exactly as it is. Okay, now solve these 2 equations. Add 3 to both sides. Add 3 to both sides here. And there's your 2 answers. And as you see, most of the problems when you use Formula 1 is going to have 2 answers because you have 2 equations. You go from 1 to 2 equations. Now, let me just show you right quick. You don't have to check these, but let me just show you that they both work. Let x be 10. What's 10 minus 3? 7. What's the absolute value of 7? 7. Let x be negative 4. Negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7, but the absolute value of negative 7 is positive 7. So those 2 answers there do work. Now, no, you don't have to check them, but they do work. All right, let's do another example. All right, this problem's not any harder than the one we just did. It's still Formula 1, absolute value equal. But in this problem, if you call this your A and you call B 3, you're going to miss the whole problem. You have to follow the steps. Do the steps in the order that I've given them to you. So what does step 1 say do? Isolate the absolute value term. Here's your absolute value term. It is not by itself. So get rid of the subtracting 7 by adding 7 to both sides. When I do that, the absolute value symbols are still there. And on the right side, you get 3 plus 7, which is 10. Step 2. Identify A, there it is, and B. There it is. Step 3. What formula are we using? The absolute value equal formula, which is this. Don't question this formula, just write it down. Now, what do we replace A with? 2x plus 3 and 2x plus 3. What do we replace B with? 10 and 10, but this 10 has a negative in front of it. Okay, now, subtract 3 from both sides. So that would be negative 13. Divide by 2 to get negative 13 over 2. Now do the same thing for the other equation. 2x equals to 10 minus 3, which is 7, and then divide both sides by 2 to get x equal 7 over 2. So it's really easy to work. You just have to remember this, 2 things. You must isolate the absolute value first before you get A and B. And then secondly, make sure you have the formula memorized. Now, one common question that I have students ask sometimes is, they'll say, Mr. Rainer, when you're solving these, do you always get 2 answers? Not always. Let me show you 2 more examples. Let's look at this one. Okay? Step 1. Here's the absolute value term. It is not isolated. So the first thing you got to do is get this on a side by itself. So I'm not going to mess with it. It will still be inside absolute value symbols. Subtract this 4 across. And when I do, I get 0. Now, step 2. There's your A, and there's your B. Step 3. Use your formula. We're using the same formula because this is absolute value equal. Replace A with 4x minus 5. Replace A with 4x minus 5. Replace B with 0. Replace B with 0, and this has a negative in front of it. Now, you can look and see right now what's going to happen. Is there any difference in 0 and negative 0? No. There's a difference in 5 and negative 5, but there's not a difference in 0 and negative 0. So when you solve this one and when you solve this one, what's going to happen? You're going to get the same answer twice. Like right here. When I add 5 to both sides, I get 0 plus 5, which is 5. And when I do, I get an x equals 2, 5 over 4. But when you solve this one, you're going to get the same thing. Now, when you list this, you don't have to list it twice. Is it 2 answers? Yes, it is. This is what we call in mathematics twin solutions. There's a more mathematical name for it, but anyway, it's just the same answer twice. So when you write it, the answer is just 5 over 4. And you say, Mr. Rainer, I got a question. Anytime B is 0 in Formula 1, will you always just get one answer twice? Yes. Every time B is 0, when you're using Formula 1, you'll always get one solution. Now, let's put a star by this one, because this one, there's a little something funny that happens in this one that I want to talk about. Okay, let's go to steps. Step 1. Get the absolute value term by itself. That means subtract the 8 across. Absolute value symbols are still there. Step 2. Identify A, which is what's in here. Identify B, which is there. All right, before I go any further, let me give you this note and then I will explain why. Here's the note. When using Formula 1, absolute value equation, if B is negative, there is no solution. If B is negative, there's no solution. Now, let me show you why. You don't have to write this down. Question. What can you put in right here in this absolute value? What can you put in here so that when you get the absolute value, you get a negative number? Is that possible? No, it's not. Here's why. I don't care what number you give me, if I take the absolute value of it, can it ever be negative? No, it's always positive. So absolute value can't equal a negative. Well, look right back up here. What is this? Absolute value. What's that? Equal. What's that? Negative. Can absolute value ever equal a negative? No. So if B is negative, when you're trying to use Formula 1, the answer is always no solution. Now, if B is 0, you get one answer. If B is negative, you get no solution. If B is positive, like it was in the first 3, then you get 2 answers. Now, 2 things I want to caution you about. First, I did not say your answers can't be negative. Look back at example B, right here. Did we get a negative answer? Yes, we did. Look at A. Did we get a negative answer? Yes. You can get negative answers. What can't happen is absolute value can't equal a negative. So if B is negative, there's no solution. Let me caution you about one other thing. Suppose I was going to solve this problem. We're not going to work this, I just want to show you. I've put a problem like this before on test and asked students to solve this, and I'll have a bunch of students say, this one's no solution. And you'll say, why'd you say it's no solution? And they'll say, well, because B is -4. No, it's not. Now, if this wasn't here, it would be no solution. But remember what do you have to do in step 1? Get the absolute value by itself. So you have to add 10 to both sides. And when you add 10 to both sides, this becomes -4 plus 10, which is 6. And then B is positive. So this problem actually would have 2 answers. Now, if this was -40 plus 10, it would still be negative. Then I would write no solution. So the only ones we've worked so far was using Formula 1, absolute value equal. And you remember you got to get the absolute value by itself first. You got to memorize your formula, A equal -B or A equal +B. And then if B is positive, you're going to get 2 answers. Just use the formula. If B is 0, you can still use the formula. You're just going to get the same answer twice. And the only one you have to watch out for is when B is negative, you stop. You don't use the formula at all. If B is negative, you stop and write no solution. Okay, we're going to do one more video, and in this last video will be, we're going to do absolute value problems where we use one of the other two formulas.